Welcome back to DIY My Way. You may recall that last year I started building a new pool house for the pool. And I worked on it from the spring through the summer and into the fall until the rain and the cold brought a halt to it until this spring. And I started working on it again. So I wanted to bring you up to date on where I am with the pool house project.
In part 1, I framed up the walls with the help of Big Orange for the first one. The rest went easier with one wall already up. In this video, I'll cover the framing of the ceiling and the roof. Along the way, I'll show you some tricks I use to be able to frame up the roof by myself.
Today I'm grateful for a cloudy day because it makes for much better working conditions. The next thing on the list for me to do is to mark where the studs come up and over the top so I can line up both my ceiling joist and roof rafters. I made one mistake with that center wall in that I didn't line up the studs correctly with the outer walls so that the ceiling joists won't sit squarely on top of the studs for that center wall. But since it's only supporting the weight of the ceiling itself, it's not really going to be a big deal. If it were, I would just pop in some additional studs a few inches over. I think you can see that problem. If I'd flipped that wall around, it would have been, might have been right.
So I mark where the ceiling joist will sit on the center wall, which is about 3 inches to one side of the stud, but it won't be a problem. Next, I cut the first joist using the leftovers as scab bores to join the joists on the center wall. You'll see what I mean shortly. By the way, technically I could have used 2x4s for the joist because of the short span, but it's 2x6s in my book. Each joist sits flush with the outer wall and comes to the middle of the center wall upper plate and is toe-nailed in with 3-inch framing nails. I use a block of wood and clamps to keep the joists in place while I nail them. Don't worry, I'll put more nails in when the other joists go up. Oh, and if you're wondering why I skipped a joist, you'll see why soon. That happens more than once during this project. So have you figured out why I left that joist out? If you guessed it's to make an attic access, you're right. Notice that my right hand is far enough from the end of the board to avoid getting skewered by a wayward nail. I shoot the bottom side first, then plumb up the top before nailing the rest. Told you it happens more than once. I take a few minutes to cut the sill plates in the doorway. Now it's time to frame up the roof. I begin by finding the center. The building is supposed to be 14 feet wide, so I measure 7 inches from both sides and split the distance between the marks if there is any. Then temporarily attach a 4-foot length of 2x4 to a ceiling joist just below where the ridge board will be. I get it in the ballpark of plumb with the speed square, then fine tune it with the level. The pitch of the roof will be 6/12 and the roof rafters will also be 2x6s. I make a mark at 3.5 feet to get the 6/12 pitch. Making the rafter patterns takes some time, but once I have the pattern right, it goes much faster. I make a mark where the bird's mouth will be. After cutting the top of the rafter to length, I use the cut piece to help mark the bird's mouth. I want the seat cut of the bird's mouth to be 3.5 inches so that it sits fully across the upper plate of the wall. With a 6/12 pitch, that means the heel cut is 1 3/4 inches. A quick test fit confirms the pattern angles are right so far. I still have to make the tail cut, which I'll do a little later. Next, I reposition the front temporary upright and add a second one in the back to get the ridge board out. Bracketing blocks of wood will hold it temporarily. The ridge board is a 2x8. That notch is where the porch ridge board will tie into. Another test fit of the rafter pattern. Then I use the pattern to cut the first set of rafters. And attach them to the ridge board using 3-inch coated deck screws each. All right, got another set of rafters up, the front set of rafters. And something I did here that's a little bit special is put in a block attached there so that I have something to set it up against and then attach it to there. And there's still a little clearance there to allow for it to breathe from the soffit, which is why I attached it up underneath, because otherwise it would have blocked those holes partially there, and that just wouldn't do. So next up, I'm going to put some about 1/3 of the way down. I just want to make sure I don't have any problems with the ridge level or anything. It all looks pretty good, so I'm not anticipating a problem. But I've already got those cut. We'll put them in. The last 2 sets will have notches in them for lookouts to support the one that's suspended out over the gable soffit. The next day I use a stop block clamped to the top of the ridge board to make sure the rafters are positioned flush with the top. Then continue making and putting up rafters. These two rafters are special because they have notches cut out for the lookouts that will support the gable rafters. Now is a good time to put up the boards that the ceiling sheetrock will attach to. These 2x4s sit on the top plate and are offset 1.5 inches to the inside of the building. Next, the rear gable uprights go in. I'm wishing I had my pneumatic palm nailer right about now, but I don't make that purchase until later. I'm leaving space to frame up for a gable vent in the center. I use my Sawzall to cut the ceiling joists flush with the rafters. Then trim a bit off the end of the ridge board.
So how is one guy going to get both those end rafters up by himself? Well, since I've done so many projects by myself, I've had to learn to improvise. And so I make jigs like this. You'll see how I use that in a moment. And this. So watch how I do this.
This first jig supports the tail of the rafter, keeping it in line with the others. And this jig supports the top of the rafters and holds it flush to the top of the ridge board. See? A hard task made easy peasy. Now to attach the lookouts, which are just pieces of 2x4s. Two deck screws hold them into the inner rafters. A single screw holds it in the notches. And 2 screws in the ends of the lookouts. With the jig moved to the other side, it's same song, second verse for the other gable rafter.
not too shabby. Everything looks fairly well lined up. Looking along the roof line, along the rafter tails. That looks pretty good. Nothing looks too out of whack. Same thing along there. That looks really good. And following the roof line there. Also looks nice and flat, straight and level.
Stay tuned for more of the pool house build. If you enjoy these videos, please help me keep them coming by clicking the like button, commenting below, and subscribing. Thanks for watching.